how deep, dark, and bad is the idea of mandating people to do something that's against their bodily autonomy?
COVID radicalized me on this front. I was already very much in favor of the idea of informed consent. I did think initially that masks were a reasonable countermeasure. I changed my position there. I came to believe they were not effective. I was not in favor of mandating masks, but I was an advocate for people deciding to mask themselves until I understood that the evidence did not support that. I was not in favor of vaccine mandates. I was fooled by the evidence that we were given or that was alluded to that suggested that they were effective in preventing COVID and that was worth doing, but I was alarmed by the claim that they were safe, which couldn't possibly have been true. In any case, the entire spectrum of remedies revealed a number of things, and I can't unsee it. I won't unsee it. Public health has been hijacked. Public health is a discipline that provides an irresistible loophole to authoritarians. The loophole is that public health creates a justification for lying about remedies, right? And much of what took place during COVID was a matter of people deciding that they were entitled to mislead us in order to achieve a better outcome than we could achieve by telling us the truth. In the end, the amount of harm that was done by these liars was incalculable. So, I am now suspicious of the entire discipline of public health because it's not that this was one error, it was many errors. And it's many errors that the discipline of public health has not woken up to even still. Right? Where are the faculties of all of the public health departments who are demanding a full reckoning for what took place during COVID so that their field is not embarrassed again the next time in the same way? It doesn't exist, right? They're a tiny handful of people.
Is that fear? Is that fear?
No, these people are experts in the same sense as all of the other experts. Most of them are phonies. They don't know what they're doing. They're basically well-intentioned, but they're not insightful, and they're behaving like robots, and they've been taken advantage of, and they're now covering their asses. And frankly, my feeling is public health, in theory, has an important role to play, but it is entitled to only one tool. It can persuade us. That's it. It does not get to mandate us because its belief that it is entitled to lie about the risks that we are facing or the benefits of a particular remedy are just not matched by the hazard that it will be taken advantage of again and used to sell us stuff that's actually unconscionable. So in any case, my feeling is informed consent is an absolute right. I don't care how fancy your argument is about the people who are put in danger. In this case, what we ended up doing, we as a civilization, was we ended up putting young, healthy people at absolutely unacceptable risk for the theoretical benefit of protecting old, infirm people, and no reasonable society does that.
Right. Whew, yeah. And isn't this something this is a lesson of history we have already learned in things like the Nuremberg trials, for instance?
We literally hanged 7 doctors at the end of World War II over violations of informed consent.
Yeah. So
this is something that we know and must remember. And I don't know how we have become so comfortable. You know, when we hung those doctors after World War II, informed consent had not yet been codified. It was understood by those who tried this case to be so obvious that we had the right to informed consent that doctors should have understood what they were violating, right? We literally hanged them over this. And this now extends far beyond medicine. I believe this is also the central principle with respect to our food system.
Yeah.
We have the right to know what's in our food, and we have the right to say, no, I don't want that. And it's not up to us to explain why we think it's dangerous. The answer is, I don't trust that thing's any good. I don't want to put it in my body.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I would like to see us extended even to our financial system, right? As I said earlier about fiat currencies, like this shit should come with a warning label, right? Like the warning label that's on cigarettes, may cause you early death or may adversely impact your health. It's like, well, this may adversely impact your wealth.
Right.
It's okay, maybe not as serious. It's not life or death, but I mean, for some people, it can be life or death, right?
Yep. Well, I mean, I think it is life or death, right? To the extent that somebody is printing money and stealing from you in so doing, of course they are going to take people across a threshold of tolerable finances into finances that are hopeless. That's going to result in people killing themselves, for example. Yeah,
and also can be used to fund a lot of death and World War I, World War II, War on Terror. All these things are just like mRNA technology.
Yep.
This is a very hot button issue during the pandemic. What is it, and what are the problems with it?
Yeah, I have a hard time explaining. To me, the problem is so transparently obvious. It took me a while to realize it, but once I realized that the problem is so transparently obvious that I would love to be able to explain it simply. I will do my best. I think it's the kind of thing that for a layperson, you might have to hear it a couple times.
Okay.
The mRNA platform solves a problem. It is a gene therapy technology, and it allows you to deliver an mRNA message. mRNA means messenger RNA. Usually messenger RNA is produced in the nucleus of your cells. It moves to the cytoplasm, and then something called a ribosome translates it into protein. Protein does the work of the cell. It creates most of the structures of the cell. So what they innovated was a mechanism for getting RNA messages that they controlled, that they dictated, into cells so that your cells would produce a vaccine-like substance. So instead of a vaccine factory, they had a factory that produces a injectable that turns your cell into a factory.
Sounds like a terrible fucking idea.
It's a terrible fucking idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a brilliant idea at one level.
Sure.
Not ready to be injected into a human being. Yeah. And frankly, there is a fundamental flaw in it that cannot be solved with present technology. This is where the rubber meets the road. When you get sick with a virus, that virus hijacks your cells. Your cells are covered in protein that you yourself produce. By a complex process in utero, your immune system learns to ignore every protein that you yourself make. So the way immunity works is you learn to ignore your own proteins, and then anytime you see something that you don't recognize, you fight it as a pathogen. When a virus invades your cells, it hijacks them, and they produce more virus. As they do that, they produce proteins that your immune system does not recognize. So your immune system has a capacity to surveil all your cells, and when it encounters a cell that is putting out proteins that you yourself make, but also proteins it doesn't recognize, it regards those cells as virally infected, and it destroys them. Because no matter how important the cell in question is, there's no way to get the virus out of it. So killing it is a better plan than leaving it in place. Okay. So now these folks who made the mRNA vaccines inject them into people, and they tell us that the vaccine will stay in the deltoid. Well, no, it's not going to stay in the deltoid. You're injecting a fluid into a space that doesn't have room for it. It's going to leak out, and in many cases, the needle itself will just by accident have landed in a vein, and that injection will actually go in a concentrated way into the bloodstream. There's no targeting mechanism at all on the lipid nanoparticles, the fats that are used to transport these mRNA messages into the body. You may remember from chemistry that like dissolves like. So fats are what these mRNAs are coated in. Every cell in your body has a fat layer on the outside. Those fats join, the mRNA message goes into the cell starts producing this foreign protein. Your immune system sees that foreign protein. This is actually part of the design. Your immune system is supposed to see it. That's where the immunity is supposed to come from. But your immune system, in recognizing these foreign proteins on your own cells, will assume they are virally infected and it will destroy them. If that happens in your deltoid, not a huge deal. If it happens in your liver, probably not a huge deal. If it happens in your heart, it's a huge deal, especially if you got a big concentrated glob of it. So a bunch of cells in your heart were producing these foreign proteins and got attacked by your immune system.
Wow.
Because your heart, A, is very well protected, so it doesn't usually suffer from insults. B, it has very low capacity for repair. In fact, mostly it doesn't repair, it scars. So if you got a concentrated dose of this in your heart and a bunch of your heart cells got transfected, your immune system will kill those cells. That leaves you with a wound. It's a wound you don't even know you have because your heart is not innervated for you to be able to feel that damage, right? There's no benefit to it because such damage would be very unusual. So you've got a damaged heart. It's never going to be the same. At best, months will pass and it will scar over. But at worst, maybe you're on the soccer field and you're going to score the big goal and your blood pressure goes up to a level it hasn't been in months, and that wound does arbitrary things. Maybe you collapse. Wow. So the punchline to this story is none of those things have anything to do with the content of the message that was encoded into these things. That just has to do with the platform. The platform has this defect built into it, and any disease you attempted to remedy with this mechanism would cause the same problem. So that's a dire failure. I would also point out there are many other flaws with this technology. The way the mRNA molecules were stabilized was irresponsible. It made for a process that cannot be terminated and is not naturally terminated by biological pathways. It also caused the ribosomes to incorrectly translate into protein so that you get arbitrary products that have arbitrary consequences. The manufacturing of these injectables was piss poor. The quality control was garbage. So there are all kinds of impurities, contaminants, including DNA from SV40, which has potentially cancer-inducing properties. So these shots were an absolute horror show. Design failure after design failure, manufacturing flaw after manufacturing flaw. And the idea that anybody injected healthy people with them is remarkable and needs to be explained.
Is this why we were seeing so much of the heart issues in mostly young men?
Yep.
And the SV40 thing too. So all of this, I mean, it sounds like you are attributing it to, gross negligence at least, but is there any intentionality in any of this in your estimation?
Let's put it this way. That possibility is on the table. We do not really know what was being attempted. But let's assume that the best is true. The best would involve people really not knowing what they had done, which is inconsistent really with the fraud in the trials that is clearly evident. The fraud in the trials, both of efficacy and safety. But at the point that it does finally become clear what the consequence of injecting healthy people with these things is, that it provides almost no benefit with respect to preventing meaningful disease, and that it carries terrible risks at an unacceptable rate, continuing to inject people with them is not just negligence. It's depraved indifference, which is a kind of murder.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's where we are. The fact that we are actually still injecting 6-month-olds with this stuff, for what earthly reason?
It's just become the new flu vaccine, right? I mean, is it they just sort of That's what it
Which-
seems like. I don't get any of this stuff, so I don't know. But it seems like it's been normalized to that extent.
It has, but I'm struggling for words to describe how diabolical it is to inject healthy children with this shot. Children do not suffer from COVID substantially.
Right.
This shot has unknown consequences and known consequences. Almost all of it is bad. A tiny benefit in resisting bad outcomes to a disease that doesn't have bad outcomes for healthy young people is not a meaningful benefit. Putting them at risk of damaging their hearts, putting them at risk of being unable to generate a proper immune response to COVID-like diseases going forward. We don't know that this provides any net benefit at all over a lifetime. It may, in fact, get in the road of developing immunity to this disease that people are now going to be encountering again and again. So all I will say is I believe that any claim that this was merely a terrifying lapse of judgment, an accident that happened in an emergency, that defense is destroyed by the observation that they are continuing to inject this stuff.
Right.
All right. This is people being completely comfortable with causing the deaths of other people's children.
It's fucking horrifying and disgusting, and I can't believe it. I can't. Yeah. Still blows my mind how many people are utterly hypnotized by this. Like, we were talking to someone recently, I won't disclose who, but they were just, oh no, the whole family's vaccinated. We get our boosters. We do. I was just like, holy shit.
It's
and
crazy.
it's a very bright line for me in a way. I'm just like, oh, I don't think I'll ever get along with this person, or
right.
I just can't. I mean, I can't connect with you on that level.
Right.
So, I mean, the big, scary World Health Organization is is involved in stuff like this. You've been pretty outspoken about these organizations. What can we do to reduce the power of these organizations and the power, the influence, everything that they're doing to create a world in which we're injecting children with this poison? How do we curtail the power of these organizations to do that?
I would say, first of all, you need to understand that these organizations are not what they appear to be. The World Health Organization is largely a effectively private trade organization for pharma. It is fueled with pharma money, and it has behaved in an utterly indefensible way. And my feeling is we need to be compassionate and show mercy and be very careful when we're dealing with people. I don't feel that way about organizations. The World Health Organization should be disbanded, and we should get to the bottom of how exactly it found itself in the role that it played during COVID. I will also point out that in this last year, the World Health Organization attempted to pass a pandemic preparedness treaty and modifications to the international health regulations that would have granted it the power to override our national sovereignty, mandate drugs, mandate gene therapies, to mandate the censoring of citizens. A terrifying set of powers that should not be in the hands of anyone.
This was World Health Organization to override like U.S. national sovereignty?
Yep. And the U.S. was pushing this. The U.S. wanted to be overridden. This was a mechanism for escaping our constitutional protections. Now, enough of us caught on to what was going on that we were able to largely derail it. We broadcast the message to our audiences. We then held a protest in Geneva. And although the documents were ultimately passed, they were almost completely defanged at the point they did it. So they saved face, but we dodged almost all of the bullets that they had put in the chamber.
Wow.
However, those same measures are now being advocated at the UN. So I would argue that Donald Trump, A, deserves tremendous credit for having pulled us out of the World Health Organization when he was president, and that if the only thing that he did in office was to pull us out of the World Health Organization, that he would have done us a major service. So that argument is in and of itself sufficient to justify a vote for him in this election, I believe.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.